Hearty welcome to the post-launch session. Welcome participants and a hearty welcome to our resource person, the known resource person, Dr. B.J. Geetha. Dr. B.J. Geetha is working as Associate Professor of English Studies at Central University of Tamil Nadu. She has 23 years of teaching experience and 18 years of research experience. She has published 2 books, edited 1 book, and 2 journals, published 66 research articles in the UGC CARE listed journals, peer-reviewed Scopus Index journals with impact factor. She has completed a UGC-funded project. She has presented academic and research papers in national and international conferences. Her research interests are drama, eco-critical studies, subaltern studies, post-colonial studies, feminist discourse, and post-humanism. A hearty welcome to you, ma'am, once again. Over to Dr. B.J. Geetha. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody present there. First of all, I would like to extend my hearty thanks to Hasina, my student, and Dr. Jayashree for inviting me and giving me this wonderful opportunity to address before the teachers. Most of you, I believe you are all teachers, and some of the PhD scholars also present there. So have a wonderful afternoon. I hope all of you might have your lunch. Okay, so today we have one interesting topic on the 3rd day, that is research, methodology, and ethics. It's a voluminous topic, of course. I have taken something very voluminous. I don't think so that I may cover up within this stipulated 1.5 hours. Covering up both the topics, both this different. Huge topic is something quite challenging as a presenter. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. Your video is clear.
Yes. Can let me share my screen also. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Can we start or should we wait for participants to join? I think only few participants are there.
We can start, ma'am, because the Zoom meeting is structured in such a way that it gets cut exactly at 3. And we need to stop somewhere at 2:30 so that we have a question answer session as well. Participants will come, they'll join.
Okay. So, thank you once again, Jayashree and Hasina. And I congratulate both the coordinators of this program and VIT University, especially the Department of English. Congratulations to you. Okay, as far as research methodology is concerned, every year, number of researches have been conducted, and every year, a lot of research publications are happening across the world. And especially as if you take India, we stand forth as far as the number of PhDs we are producing and the publications we make out in the world reputed journals as well as within India also. But when it comes to how far our researchers meet out or address or represent the social realities, it's a big muted question. We need to address something which is very, very serious, and we need to know that where certain things are lacking as far as our conduct of research is concerned. So according to American Sociological Association, they have pointed out the scholars like McKinney and Blalak and Wagner and few more sociologists. They have pointed out that there are certain key aspects that we need to look into, we need to consider about when it comes to research methodology. Way back in 2000, they made this kind of analysis and they recommended few things, especially for humanities and social sciences, that how critical pedagogy the curriculum should include research methodology and research ethics. And we need to inculcate the academic integrity, academic responsibility as far as conducting research and observing the ethics of conducting research. So according to these scholars, they have made certain recommendations in certain key areas like that. They found that there is a huge lacuna or huge rift. And the researchers have to see the differences between the mainstream representation or mainstream focus and the social realities. There is a huge difference between mainstream focus, mainstream research focus especially, and representation as far as social realities and issues are concerned. There is a huge rift. And this is where we need to have certain kinds of, awareness to be developed among the teachers as well as research scholars as well as students to the extent called, maybe we can start with the PG students. So this is the first recommendation, that how to address, how to enlighten upon the differences, how to cement the gap between the realities, the social realities, and the research conducted. So our approach should be focused towards this. And the second thing they pointed out that is that as far as social sciences and humanities concerned, either the research is conducted in an inductive or deductive manner, and the appropriate appropriate reasoning is something which they have to meet out. They have to be more appropriate. So that awareness also is required. And the third one is that the findings of so-called researchers, how many of these researchers make out unequivocal facts? They bring out the unequivocal facts is again $1 billion question. Because we have a particular social reality, we have a particular community, and the science is something, the empirical research is something, or any sort of research across all disciplines. Do they address the problems that common man, the community, the inclusive community? Because the research, if you take up any sort of research methodology, or any sort of literary analysis, the main intention or the main concern in the present contemporary scenario should be inclusive society. How far our research is addressing such an inclusive attempt is what we have to bring to the awareness of our research scholars and teachers. So these are some of the recommendations. Also, they have recommended that how the collected data, the data, how it is being conceptualized, analyzed, and the findings. So there is a kind of, match, appropriateness to address the social realities. So especially McKinney and Kaufman, they have recommended such critical pedagogy should be included at the earliest stage, at least from PG, program onwards. So these are some of things. And if you take research methodology, way back in 80s and 90s, when we were all students of in 90s PGs. No, we were not aware of what is this research methodology. We didn't have this research methodology in our curriculum. So during 80s and 90s, research methodology is a kind of a skill-based work done by the librarians and the computer technicians. It is the work of these two people who are good at computing. For them, there is no botheration, just cut, copy, paste, and whatever paraphrase can be done, they have done their research. this is what the mode of operation of research till 90s, till research methodology as a sort of a course being introduced into curriculum. So that was the thing. And later on, how research methodology, became a kind of a mandatory subject is what we have been witnessing now. But despite becoming mandatory, how there is a huge gap is there. So this is what my concern here. My entire presentation will be focusing upon how to how to cement the gap and how exactly research can be done. There is a kind of, a plea, I can say that, a kind of awareness that we have to inculcate as, academicians. So the next thing I would like to present here is that what is knowledge, how knowledge can be gained. Because every research makes attempt to attain to certain knowledge or dissemination of knowledge. But we have a fundamental problem in understanding what is knowledge itself. So knowledge is something which can be perceived in two ways. That is, a human being, he does two things. One thing is action, the other thing is perception. He perceives whatever is happening around him. He smells, he uses his sensory organs, he smells, he sees, and he observes everything happening around him. So this is one thing which is unaffected. It is a kind of a passive perception. He gains certain experience through this passive observation. There is one more thing, he participates, he does something, some of his action creates some, atmosphere or some sort of environment, or he disturbs the environment through his action. So before his interruption, before his action, the environment was something called X. And after his disturbance or after his intrusion, the environment becomes Y. So he has to pursue X and Y, and that over a period of a time, his perception through his sensory organs is what is to be termed as knowledge. For instance, I will make it clear to you. Our retina, whatever we see, the images we see, the retina makes the confirmation of those images. So we gain the knowledge of certain image through the image reflection and how the signals pass to the brain. So knowledge is gained through retina. So this is how perception over a period of time, it becomes a kind of a knowledge. So confirmation of certain images. But at the same time, I would like to make it more interesting. We have another concept called a sensory illusion. What is this sensory illusion? I will give you one stick, an unbroken stick. And I will ask you to change the space of the situatedness of the stick. I'm asking you to place this stick in a water. Now tell me what will be the appearance of this stick on the different space, on different medium called water. And this medium, once again, it varies, depends upon the density also. If the density is more, what would be the image, or what would be the, what kind of image or what kind of perception you get also varies, depends upon the space, the density, or wherever you place the stick. So when you place in the water, there is a kind of an image or perception received by the sensory organ that the stick is broken. And if you remove the stick is unbroken. So the problem arises between the two different positions, the situatedness of the object and the subjectivity of the person. So there is a lot of thing is involved, the conscious. If you take up phenomenology and hermeneutics, the consciousness, how a table is stable and how it is being conceived. So the subjectivity of a person when he looks into the stick, the object, and the space, the medium, and how knowledge perception varies. The same stick, when it is removed, it becomes a different problem. So knowledge is something, or research is something, the hour, the time when the problem is popping up. When certain queries, scientific queries pops up in your mind, that is the moment where a research is started evolving. Before that, it's mere perception, experience, and whatever human experiences are happening. But when something strikes, why this stick is looking broken in a different medium, when such queries and the attempt made to find out the reason for such brokenness is where the exact moment research starts. So it is such a serious account that we have to be more inclined towards such a research motivations. And that is why when I mentioned about the subjectivity and the objectivity of the same why we need this methodology, because the subjectivity of mine is because each person is different from other. My personality is different from other. So I cannot give the same perception to a particular situation as by some Tom or Henry. He might give different subjective notion about a particular situation. And we need a common framework to look into the same situation by different people and to make out an empirical research. And that is what we land up here as the concepts called research methodologies. So earlier there was a very what to say, that very seamless differences only between the skill, the research skill, method, and methodologies. It was a very confusing thing earlier. Now we somewhat made attempted to concretize. So these are something initially I just want to break the session with ice-breaking session, like what is research methodology, how knowledge is acquired, and how we have to be more critical, especially. The critical outlook is something that is very much required as far as research is concerned. You cannot be a dumb when you indulge in research. Okay, now these are the usual definition about what is research. So I would like to skip them, and I would like to show this picture. And this gives us a very good, this text gives us a very good understanding. I think everybody can comprehend that what is research. What is research? It shouldn't be like, I want to find out something new. It shouldn't be like, I want to follow the track of others. It should be like, inclusive. And you must know how to strike the bullseye with the proper methodology. I will tell you, don't worry, I just tell you, these are all the usual definitions and different types of researchers. Okay, so what is the purpose of research? Is my screen visible to all? Is my screen visible to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes. So the purpose of research is to gain familiarity, insight with a phenomenon. So this particular familiarization and insight, gaining some insight with a certain phenomena, and we can categorize them into explorative or formative research. And if it is to know the characteristic of a particular individual or a group of situation, and then the research can be categorized into descriptive. To determine the frequency with which something acquires or with which it is associated with something else, this is something diagnostic. So these are different purpose. At the same time, we are also making them into a kind of categorization. And if you are inclined to test hypothesis, then it will become hypothesis setting. Now, what are the characteristics of research? How a research should be? It should be directed towards solution, and it requires absolute expertise. And this is what, the present FTP, I think, attempts to inculcate among scholars, academicians. So we need to expertise. And it also emphasizes the development of generalization, principles, theories that will help in predicting future occurrence. It is not only future, but also retrospectively we can address, we can question the established notions, ideologies, or the discoveries and inventions. It is based upon observable experience or empirical evidence. It should be empirical, scientific, and it demands accurate observation and description. It involves gathering new data from primary or first-hand sources and using existing data for a few new purpose. It is characterized by carefully designed procedures that apply rigorous analysis. And it involves quest for answers, and it has to be more objective and logical. And it is characterized by patient and unhurried activity. That shouldn't be. This is what I found with most of my scholars. As soon as they join after their coursework, they show some undue, urgency to, select their own, methodologies. Ma'am, I would like to do my research on this particular, concept, methodology. I would like to do on feminism, gender studies. I used to say that you have to inculcate, first of all, it is a kind of a tapas. It is a long journey. So you can encounter many interesting, fascinating methodologies in the beginning of your research attempts, but don't ever finalize them. You have to, it is something like you're unleashing the layers of research, and finally you will strike at the most appropriate. I will give you one good example that you might have seen this Don Brown's Da Vinci Code. This is the movie where the symbolist, I think Robert Longhead. And this is a movie where anyone would, from the overview of the movie, they can finalize that archival approach is what is being applied. Because the movie is dealt about historical evidence, paintings and museums and so many things. So they might conclude that archival approach or archival methodology is the most appropriate approach, and immediately they will finalize with that. Archival approach is one of the methodologies which help the researcher to find out, to make certain meta-analysis. But out and out, this novel as well as the movie, it is feministic narrative. It is from the perspective of feminism. It is a different narrative, and where the scholar can make use of all the metadata and they can do the research from the perspective of feminism. So that kind of urge in the initial attempt might happen, but they need to be more patient. And so these are some of the characteristics and types of research. So these are qualitative and quantitative. I have a lot of information to share, so I don't want to spend much time on this. Okay, so these are different types of researches: basic, fundamental, pure, theoretical research, longitudinal research in case of historical case study, and genetic research, cross-sectional research, if it is experimental and survey research. So these are the on the basis of nature of information, you have two types of researches, qualitative and quantitative. On the basis of utility of content, you can divide your or categorize the research as basic or fundamental or pure or theoretical research. The second type is experimental and applied research. On the basis of approach of research, you can categorize them into longitudinal research or cross-sectional research. So we have subcategories of researches. So we need to understand all these, nuances. And that's why I would like to tell you that despite Indian scholars, we stand fourth in rank as far as publications and research is concerned. We are not able to publish in reputed journals like Nature and other peer-reviewed journals because we lack these, awareness. On the basis of method of research, we can divide them into philosophical research, historical research, survey research, and experimental research and case study research. So now what is research method and research methodology? This is something my students used to ask. What is the difference between these two, ma'am?
वही होगी अपने रूम वगैरह में होगी.
I got confused with the method and methodologies.
ये वाईफाई से कब तक कनेक्ट होगा?
Gupta ma'am,
Yes.
please mute your mic. Yeah, I have muted you, ma'am. Sorry for the disturbance.
So research methods are like, they are tools. They constitute a part of research methodology. Tools like taking interview, collecting samples, and field visit. These are different tools, no? So research method is an integral part of research methodology. Whereas research methodology is a kind of a broader, the overview of the research. And it comprises the methods, like whatever tools observed or utilized by the researcher for conducting research. So in research methodology, it is a systematically, empirical framework and logically arranged framework, logical arrangement of methods, and it comprises questions like why, how, and in what way, what data, what a particular technique of analyzing the data has been used. Just now, I made it very clear to you that how a research on this particular novel, Don Brown's Da Vinci Code, misleads from the initial attempt. From the initial attempt, we believe that archival seems to be the most appropriate approach. But when you do layers of primary and secondary sources of reading, that leads to a proper understanding of what would be the appropriate approach. Of course, these methodologies might become a kind of a tool or metadata. So that is the differences we must know. Once again, I would like to show the difference between research method and methodology. Methods and techniques researchers use in performing research operations, whereas methodology is a science of studying how research is done scientifically. It is an umbrella term. Okay. And various steps are adapted by researchers in studying the research problems along with the logic behind them. So this is the basic differences that we must know. And as far as, and this is my concern especially, researchers should not, like in the, traditional researchers, discipline purity need not to be maintained. You need not to be, because discipline purity was something like, it was, the context oriented. So during in 90s and 70s and 80s or 50s, the context were different. We were living in a different scenario. Our requirements and our cultural context, our sociological context, our political context, everything was different. Whereas we are living in a different context where we need to make an inclusive, embracing of all the other disciplines. Otherwise, for instance, whatever problems today Chennai faces, whenever monsoon rain happens, it's because of lack of such a research acumen. Or interdisciplinary research is what is lacking as far as India is concerned. We need to know the importance of crisscrossing or trespassing into other boundaries, other disciplines in order to address the social realities. What is required today? We are not living in the same society today. Today, we are living in a digital world. If you are a digital illiterate, it's very difficult to cope up with the present situation. So our context varies as our cultural, evolution happens. We are living in a different cultural context, and our requirements are different, and our research outlook should also change. And these are the three different types of, research, where you can trespass into other disciplines like multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. In Western societies, Western universities, these kinds of, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary researchers are recommended, and much publications are happening. And we do need to, humanities combining with the social sciences or history or philosophy or digital humanities. It is a breakthrough. Medical humanities, another breakthrough. It's all because of, this interdisciplinary attempt made by the researchers. Everything is possible. Our humanities has opened up its own gateway so that it embraces all the disciplines, so that our outlook is, it is changing so that we can address the present context, the problems of present scenario. The bygone traditional purity of discipline like feminism, historical approach or post-colonial approach, not required. Everything will become a kind of a meta-analysis. So what is multidisciplinary? It examines research problems from a range of disciplines. These explorations occurs in parallel with and within disciplinary boundaries with no cross-fertilization of methods. So it happens as a kind of a parallel research, whereas interdisciplinary takes place, examines a research problem using a shared methodological approach across a range of disciplines. Often the motivation behind the interdisciplinary studies lies in solving real-world problems. This is what I'm keep on emphasizing from the beginning of my talk. And transdisciplinary is something, it is a higher integration, higher level of integration of many disciplines, where even the non-academicians will become the part of the stakeholders. And it is something very, of course, very complex. It is very complex. So these are some of the research approaches. And now my concern or my interest is something about interdisciplinary approach. I'm just recommending interdisciplinary approach to all the participants. You can speak with your fellow colleagues of different departments, and you can send your projects to ICSSR and ICMR and so many other funding agencies to do a lot of projects to, this is something very, very important as far as research is concerned. So what is this interdisciplinary approach? It implies the integration or derivation of different concepts, methods, and epistemologies from different disciplines. So it is an integration of different concepts, methods, the tools that we apply, and the epistemology, the science of knowledge. It is a synthesis of two or more disciplines establishing a new level of discourse and integration of knowledge. For example, nuclear physics is combined with medicine and it led to a new treatment for cancer. So these are all the breakthrough inventions, discoveries in research. So that is the importance, and we have some quotations here for research interdisciplinary approach. What is interdisciplinary approach? It is involve closer and more frequent collaborative exchanges among researchers drawn from different fields are working together on a common problem. And interdisciplinary involves interaction among two or more different disciplines and acquires at the interface between disciplines by sharing the ideas of full integration of concepts. So what are the key benefits of interdisciplinary? We have already seen that how cancer treatment and many other ailments, medicines are found out using this interdisciplinary approach, not only in medicine, but also in all our sociological problems. We need to have interdisciplinary outlook. So the key benefits are it enhances creativity, important contribution to the new field of knowledge. All the barriers of discipline specific will be removed. And so you have the freedom to go into or trespass into other discipline and to do a kind of a research. You have that freedom as an academician. Interdisciplinary knowledge and research evoke the ideal unity of knowledge. So different knowledges, they come together and they evolve and they become an ideal unity of knowledge. So this is something very, very fruitful as far as the 21st century is concerned to address the present context. And it gives you a lot of flexibility and academic freedom integrated due to blurring of disciplinary boundaries. So a lot of flexibility. And it bridges communication gap across the discipline. So whatever barriers you find in a particular discipline, and because of those barriers, because of those, hunchers, you are not able to do particular research, you can combine with the other discipline and you can very well address them. So that is the essence of it. For example, projects on health, gender studies, education, psychology need an integrated approach for it. This is one project where we are integrating 4 different disciplines like medicine, health, gender studies, education, and psychology of students, for instance. Also, a psychiatric disorder management or multidisciplinary care models by incorporating patients' health quotient index. See, in foreign countries, I just wonder, in India, unfortunately, we don't have we don't have the awareness of what is this happy index and health index. If a patient is getting, for instance, in Western societies for treatment for cancer, there is a person called health, health doctor. He is a person, a go-between the patient and the hospital, and he questions whenever the hospital fails to do certain procedures, certain treatments, certain medications, and he takes care of the insurance and the mental health of the patient. We in India, we don't have such mental health doctors. Of course, many psychiatrists or they are mushrooming up, but the kind of the other day we conducted one invited talk on inviting a psychology professor, and the professor very shocking, she revealed that how in India that a psychiatrist without much training, they indulge in giving counseling to students and the mentally broken, imbalanced people, the patients. So without much training, that is something happens only in India. And again, the second thing she pointed out is that these psychiatrists, they insist, they make these patients, the people who are getting counseling to believe, to accept their disease. You are suffering. They are imposing on them that this is your problem and you have to follow this treatment. Such imposition should not be there, because for that only they are coming to them. They are imposing on the other hand that you have this problem and this is the treatment. They are imposing upon those treatment. It's like a kind of a business as far as India is concerned. Also, we are not aware of our happy index, how happy we are in the working place, how happy we are with our family members during our weekend. There is a happy index in every country, and they give due importance to that, their happy index. So our research is something, it has to orient towards this. Such orientation requires, we need to enjoy our life. Our body should have certain privileges. In Singapore, for instance, every month in the Singapore government schools, for instance, every month they conduct physical examination of all the children, and if, for instance, if they have cavity, they do themselves. It is included in the fees, and their fees is very nominal. Every month, physical test is conducted on every student, free of cost. Health index is something which is incorporated in the school administration. Where are we in India? Do we have such privileges? Are we aware of such things? It is our fundamental rights. And through research, we can question, we can deliberate, we can bring such, findings and suggest to the government. So their interdisciplinary is very helpful. Now, so this is different approaches that I would like to suggest here. The first one is archival research approach or method. This is something mostly applied as far as historical research is concerned. They involve, they go to different libraries and museums and even some private, suppose researchers about Wordsworth. You can visit Wordsworth's house and see the letters, diaries, and everything. So these are the metadata that can help us to do this archival research. But there is one particular thing that we have to, be very careful about. If you have museum, and these museums are dedicated for certain particular memory. That's what I mentioned. It works on particular memory. For instance, colonial memory. Colonial memory of the British Empire or the people who are ruled. That is the question we have to raise. We have to understand for whose memory or on whose memory the museum is constructed. Is it to parade the pride of the colonial invasion, and to show, on the other hand, on the flip side, the subjectivity, the slavery of the section of the community? A museum is an object, a concretized symbol that shows both at the same time. It shows the pride of the British Empire, that how these people were colonized, and the artifacts arranged there that propagandize. That's, even when Salman Rushdie, I just strikes my mind when Salman Rushdie published his Midnight Children. More than any places, it was in England, it was soared like madness. Why? There is a reason for the present generation of British Empire. They want to read because colonization happened elsewhere, and it was a kind of a historical pride for them, and they wanted to have this nostalgic sense of pride by reading Salman Rushdie's Midnight Children, where the British Empire, their colonization, such pride is there embedded, and that remained the huge reason for such a success of blockbuster success of this textbook. So archival approach has its own limitation. That is, it is, for instance, if particular memory for which something is being constructed, in order to retain that particularity, they will destroy other important documents. And the researcher who is approaching to that particular memory may not be receiving the other data because it has been destroyed, because their prime intention of maintaining that particular memory is to not to detract the researcher otherwise. So they don't want to detract from the particular memory. So in order to avoid such a regression, they destroy certain documents, however important that those documents. And where else these research scholars would go and acquire them? It's impossible. So there is a kind of a situation arise, and that is called incompleteness. So there is some incompleteness in this methodology and how to address. So the researchers must know this archival approach will not be the end of research form. The methodology is not end of everything. So this is where we need to make interdisciplinary approach to find out other documents, other methodology where maybe it might be a quantitative analysis or a qualitative analysis, so that research will become complete. None of the methodologies will be more appropriate. There are certain lacunae in every approaches, and we need to be more aware of it. Don't ever think that the approach that you have selected is something complete in itself. Okay, everything might be, maybe the percentage varies, 80%, 90%, 99%. That's it. So whatever incompleteness is there in the archival approach, let me cement them with the autobiography or biography method. So I go to particular writer, the autobiography of, for instance, I have mentioned here Sylvia Plath, and have I mentioned here? Yeah, Sylvia Plath, Michael Jackson, Marilyn Monroe, Princess Diana, for instance. There are umpteen number of biographies written by these popular figures, personalities. But there is one more drawback. There is one more incompleteness even in this methodology, and that is what is called author's fantasy. If you read Sylvia Plath's biographies, American biographers write differently, British biographers write differently, and the researcher, the biographer, should not have his own bias or prejudice or preconceived notions and assumptions in writing biographies, but it happens with the biography writings. So which is a fact and which is a fantasy of the writer is something very difficult to understand. This is what happened with everybody, even with the present scenario that is maybe when it comes to discourse analysis, and I would like to mention, but anyway, it strikes my mind now. I would like to share with you that how particular narratives of actor Vijaykanth happened recent past, and particular type of narratives made the people to believe certain things, and the same narrative is retold in a different way today, and which is true and which is false. We are living in a kind of a gray world where you cannot distinguish between what is true and what is false. We are living in a post-truth world where truth markets are there. We are living in the truth market world. Everybody, they are selling their truth, and which is really truth is something very, very difficult to find out. So how we can conclude that this is truth because of this and that, this may be the truth. This happens with autobiography or biography method, and we may not get the truth, but a truth. There again, this methodology becomes incomplete due to verifiability, falsibility, and reliability of data. Then what is good research? How it has to be? It has to be plausible. It has to be pervasive in a set of findings to a given community of readers. It has to persuade. That is the plausibility and reflexivity. Research process and its impact on the findings. The research methodology that the research scholar has adapted should see that how the findings, it has to be more, inclusive and adaptive so that a particular result is possible. So if you want particular result in such a way based on the data collected, the researcher need to know the incompleteness of the methodology also, so that they can, find out yet another better, appropriate methodology. And it has to be more comprehensive. So these are the qualities of good research. Now, okay, we found that our audio biographical method also has some sort of, now oral narratives. So there is one concept called triangulation. Whatever be the methodology, this triangulation, especially for oral methodology as well as autobiography methodology, this is a kind of a process, triangulation. I think it is mentioned there also. Triangulation is a kind of a procedure, a kind of methodology to test the evidences, the data, the metadata. Are they correct? So this particular methodology to be applied for the data collected. If you do this triangulation, you can claim your research as something ideal. So these are the nuances we need to know, that how I can make my research authentic. There are certain concepts. We need to apply them to see the rightness of the data, the correctness of the data. So triangulation is something, it is a documentary evidence, para-documentary evidence. It is something like re-verifying the data. And the next one is visual method, where art history, visual anthropology, these are the different disciplines they can apply this visual method. Gillian Rose suggests 3 ways to study visual science. This is one important, compositional integration. As I mentioned about triangulation, this compositional integration, those people who apply this methodology, visual methodology, they should apply this compositional integration, which is an integral part of the content form of an image. For instance, the color, the thickness of the figure or image, the thinness of the image, whether it is given in black and white, whether it is placed in the right corner, left corner, different dimensional. So this is something compositional interpretation is a very key tool to verify the data we have collected. So this could be applied for visual methodology. The second tool or approach as far as visual methodology is concerned, semiology. And most of you might be knowing it's about the science of sign. And there are a lot of cultural codes, structuralism and post-structuralism, how meaning is floating, there is no meaning, fits on meaning. We are engaging in, the tracing of meaning, the game of meaning. These are all we know that, how sign, all that. And the same sign, in terms of culture, it gives you different understanding or different perception. So there are cultural codes, each text, each, everywhere, our society is filled with such a cultural codes. If you go to a temple, there is one namam which indicates certain things, and if it is this, if it is, like this, or different signs. Everything is a cultural practice. So sign is something, according to Barthes, it is cultural core, mythologies. Stuart Hall, it is cultural codes, and Raymond Williams says the same for the same semiotics signs. These are the different perceptions by different theorists, cultural theorists. Richard Williams says, Raymond Williams says it is reference system. And the last thing is discourse analysis, which is production of meaning. Discourse is spoken, written, any text. It is, you produce meaning through certain discourses, any text. Foucault's discourse is as a form of discipline. So he speaks about how human bodies are disciplined, how institutions are they are discipline oriented. Schools, uniforms. Each profession has its own discourse. For instance, police person, if they wear one particular dress, we understand they are police person. Institutionalized. Your Aadhaar card is one sort of surveillance state apparatus. It is a state apparatus where people are under surveillance to discipline what you are buying, how much gold you are buying, which vehicle you are buying, you are under 24/7 under surveillance. The panoptic prison, for Jeremy Bentham's panoptic prison, it is like a 360-degree view of what the prisoners are doing. So the discourse of Foucault was something about how disciplined the human bodies are disciplined. Okay, so these are all, when you take up this methodology, these are the tools the researcher have to apply. They have to see the compositional interpretation of the images, the text, and the semiology, the signs of all types of signs, cultural signs, all types of signs, and discourse analysis. Now, so this is a different methodology, cultural studies. All this, I just recommend only interdisciplinarity. I think you are able to follow that. Cultural studies, literary analysis. Okay. So these three texts, mythologies, the pleasure of the text, these are all the classics of Ronald Barthes, where look at the kind of, even the textbooks are interdisciplinary, applied semiotic analysis to a variety of literary, philosophical, and visual text. The book itself, the text itself is in, comprises semiotics, literature, and philosophy. One more example I would like to. So when you take up this cultural methodology, we have to read these textbooks. These are all the Bibles of cultural studies. How culture evolves over a period and how our outlook changes and what is important in the present scenario and how culture to be deciphered. What are the things that represent culture or non-represent culture? If you go to France, if you go to France, the cultural representation of wearing this burqa by Muslim Islamic women, if they go to beaches of France, they are not allowed to come to beaches because they are wearing this burqa. They have to come in this swimsuit only. So the cultural barriers, the cultural context varies. So beach refers to a different thing, a different component for French people. It is a place for sunbathing and entertainment where you need not come with your religious code. It is non-religious place where religion is not accepted. So these are the nuances we need to understand. So look at this work, Foucault's The Order of Things and Archaeology of the Human Sciences, where the paradigm shift he makes addresses how grammar later on became philology. And the study about wealth, today we have a discipline called political economy, and how natural history has become biological today. So he makes a kind of a study, an overview study about all the paradigm shift happening in different disciplines in terms of culture. Wealth is a cultural artifact. Your language, wealth, everything, the animals, the species in a particular place. Okay, so due to time lag, I cannot. Next is Umberto Eco. His famous book, The Travels in Hyperreality, where it's an interesting text. Please do read the books I suggested here. He makes a review of a famous movie called Casablanca. Also, he incorporates sports, especially these Mexican Olympic sports where anti-government protest has happened. Look at the kind of the Casablanca movie of American Dream. And where is the context? Look at the different context and where is the connection between Casablanca and there is something. There is something he wanted to bring out and make a kind of a connection, a postmodern scenario. Okay, in sports, especially in the essay called the Sport Chatter, where he speaks about being and time of Heidegger, the philosophy. Understand? So these are different, different disciplines, but how cultural, requirements make such predicament. And this is another interesting work called Derrida's Class. Look at the spelling, where he speaks about the letters and exegees and diaries of Immanuel Kant, Janet, and Hegel. And what is the thing he speaks about here? The questions the possibility of linear reading and notion of theme, author, narrative, and discursive demonstration. There is nothing called linear reading. So he challenges the reader with their linear understanding. So it is a kind of a postmodern novel where reader is exposed to the kind of challenge of making meaning in the text. Because everything is juxtapositioned in such a way that the theme, author, narrative, discursive, demonstration disturbs the position of the reader and the writer in the text. As we know, the famous quote from this book, there is nothing outside the text. Please do read this. So this is the book, The Glass. Look at the kind of font. He used 10 different font in a single page. Such, crude mixing of font. So there is something he wanted to deconstruct. Even I think you are able to see the font different size, size and different types of font, deliberate attempt. This is a page from Gloss, the novel. And okay, now a few more definition about cultural studies. Okay, in cultural studies, how we can, how through language, through cultural what are the different artifacts that represent cultural representation, like how culture is constructed. It is embedded even in sounds. The early morning sound, Om, for instance. Particular type of sounds. Even the mother, village mother, she makes something, lullaby-like sound. That particular sound depicts particular culture. Inscriptions on the walls, on the temples, objects, images, books, magazines, television programs, in all the whatever premises, the premises of social context. Culture is being constructed and we need to see them carefully. How culture is articulated through expression, through representation, through gender representation, race representation, nation. I'm an Indian, I'm a Pakistani, I'm an American. So there is a particular, for instance, like women from India, the nation, a particular cultural construction happens, context specific and contingent ways that cannot be predicted without factual details. And also through these cultural representation and articulations and through language and visual signs and semiotics and everything, power structure could also be understood. How power pervades in every level of social relationship. So these are some important cultural theorists, especially in this particular text, Culture and Society and Long Revolution. He emphasizes that how culture should go beyond the association of the elite society. It should be more inclusive. So these are the things we have to know if you engage with the cultural, these are all the evolutions, in our conceptualization, cultural conceptualization. How Williams recommend that we need to make an inclusive, expression, meaning making. Culture never ever, comprises only elite people, their literary products, their achievements, artistic achievements. No, it is a particular way of life of all people and how it is being institutionalized in our ordinary behavior. Also, Hogarth, in the use of literacy, he wanted to speak about something different, that he made an inclusive study about the working class community and their cultural practices like newspaper reading, magazines, TV, operas, soap, TV soap, music, popular fiction. And he made a kind of a conflicting presentation with the American mass culture. And what is mass culture and popular culture? It's a very minor difference. Both are, reciprocal and mutual. But mass culture is something like, I would say that if you are Spotify in your phone, you might have Spotify or iPhone music. These are the indicators of mass culture. Whereas popular culture is something like if Michael Jackson, for instance, Michael Jackson, or any particular one song. Recently, we have this Kavala song. It is popular culture, indicators of popular culture. So that is the difference between mass culture and in a nutshell. And these are some important text. Yeah, another half an hour only. So I just glimpse over. No, I just landed here with is it okay if I pass it, or should I deal with it? Otherwise, we cannot see ethics. Very important topic.
We'll move on to ethics, ma'am.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So this particular image, if you see this image, what is, just now I told, Foucault's disciplined. How one image makes you a disciplined audience, you are prepared to, behave in such a way. So this is one image, and look at this image. Can anybody tell what this image suggests in a quick span of time? What are the two women are there? One hand is there. This is an image taken in China. It's a mall, I think. Okay, let me tell. This is something like give hand to women for women empowerment. So symbolically, that is the thing. And now come to ethics. This is the branch that belongs to branch of philosophy, where other branches of philosophy also there. But let us concentrate human conduct, character. Okay. So fundamental ethical thing. Now, why we should study about ethics? Because any ideas, any notions, any ideologies, so they are basically not tangible. So somebody might have before us, they might have uttered, they might have shared such views in a conference or somewhere. So how to give acknowledge to the notion when you claim it is mine? So there are certain things that we need to take care. We need to, mind about the integrity, the academic integrity. So in order to bring out such integrity, I just wanted to retrospectively pinpoint what are the mistakes that already happened and how we need to sensitize ourselves regarding ethics. So these are some of the samples, illustrations, elucidations of unethical follies happened in different disciplines. This Piltdown man, actually, it's a kind of a fraud, a hoax fraud. There was a person called Charles Dawson, and he claimed that he found the missing, scientific or evolutionary link between apes and early humans by when he found the jaws and some few bones of earlier human species. It was a kind of 40 years of academic controversy happened when he claimed that in 1912 he found this missing gap in a place called Piltdown. It's a place in England, Sussex. But only in 1953 it was revealed that the jaw and the teeth that he claimed, the missing jaw, link of fossils of human species, were actually belonged to chimpanzees and chimpanzees, and he stained them with certain chemical solutions, and he claimed such fraudulence were involved. So it was such a 40 years of battle to establish that, because he stained them with a particular type of sulfate and some other metal or something, a chemical, which is not happening, which is not native to that particular place. So the scientists they have to gather a lot of evidences to prove that this is a fraudulent claim by Charles Dawson. The second unethical folly that happened was Takeshi's syphilis study. So syphilis is a kind of a disease which was tested upon 400 Black American men without their informed consent. They were not informed. This virus was applied into their body, and they were tested to see their immune system. So hundreds of them have died, though some of them recovered. It was a kind of hundreds of people without their permission. It was tested upon them. And way back, Bill Clinton also made a kind of a public apology to these Afro-Americans. This is a kind of a sin happened with these Black Americans. The third one is a very shocking thing, that it is called monster theory or monster study, where Wendell Johnson, a scientist, he's actually a therapist, a speech therapist. He conducted speech therapy test upon 22 stuttering orphans, and he divided them into 11 stuttering students were given speech therapy, positive speech therapy, and they were able to recover from it. And the other 11 were given negative speech therapy, which deteriorated their condition. To that extent, they stopped talking. They become dumb. They stopped talking, and that affected their their mind, and their personality was affected. And actually this particular study, even now the evidence is, it was a huge data that he has collected. It is still there in the University of Iowa. It was through his student, Maria, I think. She was a PG student. She was conducting this research, and this research was not published in any peer reviewed by Wendell Johnson. So he was such a fraudulent that he has conducted this particular damaging monster therapy on just 22 orphans without their consent. And till now, it is considered as a monster therapy study. And these are the follies. How children, vulnerable community were manipulated for a scientific purpose. Even animals, for that instant, all types of human accessories were tested upon these animals. Even recently, there is a kind of a test is happening, that how teeth can be grown artificially through stem cells therapy. So they removed the teeth of these rats, and they, through stem cells therapy, they've seen that how teeth is growing. And in future, even if human beings are losing their teeth, so there are possibilities that teeth may grow. But look at the kind of manipulation and exploitation happening with the animals and these minority communities especially. So because of this, one more example is that Nuremberg Code 1947, which was a kind of code, scientific judicial code or a procedure, which has been, institutionalized in 1947. But before that, there is a kind of, once again, unethical practice happened during this World War. It is called a Jewish Bolshevism. It is a conspiracy theory where 38,000 German doctors were involved in order to maintain the purity of Aryan race. So they wanted to remove other races. How to remove this? We know that this Nazi governments, Holocaust and all that. So these doctors were involved in that process. So this procedure is called Jewish Bolshevism. It's a kind of resolution they have taken to maintain this Aryan purity. Doctors from racial hygiene movement, a National Socialist Physicians League indulged in 1929. So what they have done, these are the things they have done. The sterilization law. It has become a law. So it has become a kind of a legalized sanction is given to these doctors to practice upon the Jewish community. So they sterilized, forcible sterilization of those people who are suffering from genetically determined illness, mindedness, schizophrenia, epilepsy, genital blindness, deafness, and alcoholism. And this law also excluded the Jewish community from getting citizenship and prohibited marriage or sexual relation between Jews and non-Jews. Euthanasia program for patients judged to be incurable is practiced. So these are the monster, crucial or barbaric, treatment or exploitation happened with them as an effort to anti-Semitism. So because of that, a code has been established. This is called Nuremberg Code. Most of the science people, they may be knowing what is this code refers to. It has 10 standards of procedures which physicians must confirm when carrying out experiments on human subjects, and a new code that is now accepted worldwide. So all the institutions, because of this, in India also we have this ethical community or ethical, center or ethical groups to see especially for science researchers, how the codes are followed, observed. This judgment established a new standard of ethical medical behavior for the post-World War II human rights. Voluntary informed consent. This is most important, and a risk must be weighed against the expected benefit. Unnecessary pain, suffering must be avoided. Avoid action that injure human patient. The principle established by this code for medical practice now have been extended into general codes of medical ethics. So we have this Belmont report also, which first established, which was institutionalized in United States Department of Health and Human Service. Respect for person, protecting autonomy, beneficence, do not harm by minimizing the risk, justice, which is more important, non-exploitative, fair administration procedure. So they should be informed, risk versus benefits, fairness you have to see this, whether the research is having more risk or more benefits. If it is involving more risk, you have to see the ways how to reduce the risk. Fairness in the selection of participants, and dignity, rights, safety, and the well-being of the participants to safeguard particularly the vulnerable group of people. So this Belmont report is being practiced in all the universities, also institutions, hospitals, wherever research is happening. So okay. So this is when it comes to academia, what is research ethics is, it speaks about plagiarism, cheating, and fabrication of information, unethical behavior, all that. It is universal and not changes from person to person. So ethics refers to, as far as academia is concerned, it is universal. The researcher has to acquire prior knowledge of the path to conform to standards of ethical research. Research ethics gives a sense of security to the subjects of research, to participants, to participate freely. Approval of authorities for receiving fund happens only when we follow this confirmation of ethical codes. So research process should comprises content, what the research decided to study. The researcher must know what I'm going to do, the research, and who are my samplings, how to conduct it. So methodology, observation, research problem, how participants are to be treated, how contributions are cited. Common themes for ethical research are being honest, transparent, respecting confidentiality, and intellectual property. Due to lack of time, I'm just rushing. So these are some important things. We might know what is fabrication, salami slicing, redundant publication, all that. Now, this is very interesting ethical dilemma. This happened once again in our own contemporary society, especially in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, bombing. That how President Harry took a major decision of instructing the scientists to use this atomic bomb. So this is the dilemma. So ethics is something that everybody this is something that it has to be practiced in the house. The child has to inculcate this ethical sensibility, and to that extent of the president and the researcher have to do, because of one unethical practice, because of one unethical decision was made till today. Japanese community, they face a lot of health issues because of this. And you might have seen this movie also, Oppenheimer, how the scientist, there is a tier two the dilemma situates the scientist whether to harness, harness the invention, or to, which is a breakthrough invention, or to say goodbye to this science, because we have a period called the Enlightenment period where science has given a lot of promises to different sorts of illness, but the same science has killed millions of people. So how the enlightenment is being shattered, and the dilemma is still existing. And there is one more, Fritz Haber. Haber-Bosch process is a very famous process. And he actually, his chemical process has helped to find out this nitrogen fixing process. But he is known as father of chemicals also, and the chemicals that he has found, most of them were used in World War One, and he underwent this kind of a dilemma once again. And this is very interesting. HeLa cells, which is dubbed as immortal cells, and there is one Black American called Henrietta Lacks. She was suffering under cervical cancer, and when she went for treatment, this doctor called George K. He took the tumor cells, the cells of her cervical cancer, and tested them in the laboratory. And fortunately or unfortunately, it happened like the kind of experiment done before. The cells were, they keep dying after culture testing. But this her cervical cancer cells, they lived even after such a culture is happening with them. And it's because of her cell, they found a lot of vaccines for HPV, polio, HIV, COVID-19, even this recent COVID-19. We have to thank this unknown woman called Henrietta Lacks, and this her cell is being named as HeLa cells or immortal cells. Earlier, this is the name given to this cell. It is only after legal fighting that a name got revealed when Henrietta Lacks' granddaughter, she acquainted with one doctor and who is a cancer specialist, and he revealed the truth that it is her grandmother's cell, which is still being utilized in all the labs. Look at the kind of treatment and the cell which has been surviving. It has been sent to even zero gravity, that is to space, to test whether it survives there. And 50 million metric tons of cells of Lacks was being globally distributed, and around 75,000 researchers have been conducted using her cell. So thanks to this Henrietta Lacks, but she died without knowing that her cells have been taken from, without her consent, because she comes from a Black community. this George Gay has taken the privilege, has taken the, unethical attempt to procure her cells and has done a lot of, researches. World Health Organization has apologized to the family of Henrietta Lacks, and they also rewarded the family recently. And the biggest dilemma of the present situation is that Chat GPT, whether to accept it or not, that is the biggest dilemma for the academicians. And I would like to point out here that how Heidegger, in his famous essay, The Question Concerning Technology, he raised this hypothesized question that this kind of a predicament, whether we have to digitalize ourselves, digitally, illiterate or to be illiterate or illiterate, is a big dilemma for all of us to how to balance ourselves. So that is something, it hypnotizes all the younger generation. They have been hypnotized by the massive growth of this kind of technology and the digital world. So it is hypnotized by its power, forgetting its purpose. But at the flip side, we have to see that we are all conscious oriented person. That's why even Descartes says, I am thinking, therefore I am. So what if thinking is stopped? What is this I am, the self, happens to? What will happen to this self? What will happen to this conscious thinking? So these are the things we have to also think about. And what is this so-called humanness, what it will become or what it will evolve into? If machine takes part, or chunk, major chunk of our creative process or the conscience which happens, which makes us to be termed as humans, if it is missing, I don't know what will happen. And these are some other interesting ethical issues like this I will take up, the sneaky kids and its aftermath due to lack of time. This alone, it's interesting text you can read where Henry Walcott has published a trilogy on a kid called Brad, who is a dropout and a schizophrenia patient also, and he wanted to do certain research on such dropouts, schizophrenic patients or children, in order to see what is education, the validity of education to these kinds of kids. So the research question was this, but over a period of time, when the trilogy appeared, Harry Walcott has become so intimate and to such extent that they had physical relationship with this particular boy. And it was the reviewer of this textbook, a reviewer of this Sneaky Kid and its aftermath, who found out that how intimacy has gone beyond the normalcy. And the boy Brad, who was in prison because later on he came and he burned the house of Harry Walcott because he revealed all the secrets in the. So confidentiality is something that is not being maintained by Harry Walcott. The same thing happened with the homosexual samplings in the Humphreys study, where he revealed the names, identity of the samples. So confidentiality is something which is very, ethical, requirement, and informed consent is also a very basic requirement. So once again, I wanted to reiterate the 6 important ethical conduct in qualitative research is confidentiality, anonymity, inappropriate relationships, informed consent, and privacy. And also, I would like to throw one challenge to the audience who listen to this presentation. There is one interesting topic called prison escape in 1983. It happened in West Ireland, I think. This is by Irish Republic Army. And it is still there. The prison cell is still there, which is H shape. And how they escaped from this prison cell is still a kind of, it's the prison structure, the very architecture of the prison is a maze kind of, it very difficult to escape. But these 12 or number of army people, they escaped, and it become a kind of a research study. You can conduct some research on that. And to conclude, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Thank you. And these are
Thank you so much, ma'am.
yeah.
Ma'am, I'm sorry I could not join in the beginning. I had some lecture. Nice to see you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and thank you for accepting our invitation too. If we have some quick questions, please, because the meeting gets automatically disconnected by 3 o'clock. If we have some quick queries, please. The attendance form is shared in the chat box, so you can fill it in. I mean, I'm sorry I could not join in the beginning itself, but then I joined by 2 o'clock. I had some other prior engagements. But then you were touching on many areas, shedding light on different theoretical perspectives. It was very nice listening to you, actually. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the well prepared scholarly presentation. Thank you so much. I'm sure all the participants must have definitely benefited from the session. Sure, I'll share the Google form with you once again. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining. Looking forward to further collaborations with you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Hasina. Thank you.
Ma'am, can I put a question? I'm sorry. This is
Do we have any question? No.
yeah, one question, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Ma'am, actually, at what stage of our research we have to submit it for the approval of this committee, research committee, ethic committee?
Yeah, before your
Hmm.
final submission, you have to, because they will give you a certificate that no human, even if human sampling is involved, ethics, research ethics has been observed. So they have to certify it. So after that only you can submit your thesis.
Will it not be better if we get the approval even before we start doing it, ma'am?
No,
Because it will be a waste of time, after doing everything.
No,
When we come to know
that's
about it.
another good question, of course, but each
Yeah.
institution has their own, ordinance. So in different
Yeah.
institution, maybe they have in such a way that ordinance recommends in the beginning of the submission
Yeah.
itself.
Okay. Okay.
It
Yeah,
varies
right,
from
okay.
institution to institution.
Okay.
As you suggested, it would be better if they have in the beginning itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Shivagami ma'am, for the question. I think the meeting will automatically get disconnected at 3 o'clock. That's how they're
Okay,
set up.
okay, ma'am.
Thank you, Shivagami ma'am, for the
Thank
question.
you. Thank you, Hasina, ma'am.
Thank you, Geetha ma'am, for joining once again. Heartfelt thank you for joining and
Thank you and
accepting our invitation. Thank you
congratulations.
so much, ma'am.
Thank you.